Hello, my servants, and welcome to part 4 of my living in a hotel arc. Hopefully, the last part I should add. But on today's rant, we're going to be talking about PlayStation killing physical media. Yay! Isn't that fun? So fun, I know it. And I have makeup on today, as you can tell. Yes, I think it looks pretty nice. And, after today, my scenery is probably going to change a little bit. I mean, it is going to change a little bit. And I don't know how, frequent my videos are going to be after this one. But I would like to keep it up, I don't want this to be like a one and done kind of thing. But anyway, let's just get to the point because, like I said, my videos still take forever to upload with this internet, and I don't want to be, super loud and everything and disturb everyone. Like, they're probably like, someone shut her up, right? So, yeah. And I know this is like several months late, but at the same time, this is kind of like always timely, the concept of physical media versus digital media. So, just a few months back, Sony put out a tweet, an update on their blog saying that, by, I believe it's 2028, I think January 2028, that they were going to basically stop producing discs. So the PS6, of course, would be an all-digital console. And, that pissed people off. Rightfully so. And for a good several weeks, Sony just went completely silent on social media. And there were like, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of replies on their social media account, just, calling them out for, killing physical media. And, there were reports that Sony has not communicated this to retailers. They were caught off guard. Game developers, all that kind of stuff. Just like, hey, what the hell? But apparently they don't care. They don't care. I think their CEO has made a statement of like, yeah, we're not bothered by this. We're not expecting it to hurt our financials in any way. We're not bothered by it. We're gonna keep on trucking. And it's just like, I think the other day they just had like a Ghost of Yote stream, and the chat, the live chat was just again flooded by comments of people angry about Sony's decision to stop producing physical discs. And, this has been, an age-old debate about, which one's better. I personally, I use both. There are some situations where, I find a physical copy for cheap. The game I may not have wanted otherwise, and I snag it. And the same thing with digital games. Sometimes, there's a good digital sale going on, and I'll pick something up for cheap. But usually, like, if I have a preference, I lean more towards physical, because again, that's a physical manifestation of something you paid money for, something you can, personally hold in your hands, you can display in a collection, all of that good stuff. You don't have to worry about it getting, removed from the store, anything like that, or losing your account, and then you can't access the game anymore, all shit like that. That's a drawback of, owning digital games. And it's only gotten worse in the recent weeks since this has happened. Sony said some shit about like, if you move to a different country, you have to make a new account and all that other stuff, you're gonna have to rebuy all of your games, right, to make a new account, which is kind of fucking stupid. The whole thing about like, if you don't sign into your account in X amount of days, then, there goes your library. Just all this kind of shit that makes it very clear that they are not consumer friendly. They have not been consumer friendly for quite some time, with the constant, price increases of the PlayStation 5, both versions, and the Pro model. They're only getting more expensive. And just, once they kill off physical games, like, you're not gonna have an alternative. It's just like if Sony wants to set the price outrageously high on another Last of Us remake, or another Spider-Man game, anything like that, I mean, you're kind of fucked. It's not like I'll wait for it to go on sale, or I'll buy it secondhand, I'll buy it pre-owned. Or maybe a friend of mine is getting it and I can borrow it from them. Because no, you're not going to be able to do that. You know, you're not going to have physical copies that you can go out to a store and buy for cheap a couple months or, a few years after release. That's not going to happen. The only place you can buy that game is on the PlayStation Store. And, if the game ever gets delisted, well, you're fuck out of luck. Because there's no alternatives. It can only be through the PlayStation Store. And again, it just creates a monopoly. There's no competition. There's no one to, price out or anything like that. Just like, we can set the price to whatever we want. Cells, they can make those. I mean, the PlayStation cells are already kind of, Just imagine how bad they're going to get when, Sony could be like, no, we don't feel like having a cell. You're going to buy our games for full price and you're going to fucking like it for $100 plus. And you're going to like it like a good fanboy. Right? And just, I don't know, there are just so many people that are defending it. One thing I was telling my friend about when this was kind of new-ish, even though, like I said, this is going to be going on for months, hopefully. I hope it doesn't lose steam because Sony's either going to have to backtrack or they're just, again, not going to give a fuck. And it's going to be implemented with the PS6 whenever that eventually comes out. And then future PS5 games, anything like that, PS4 games, they're done. But, no, like, early on in this whole thing going on, and I'm sure this was planned to an extent to take advantage of the situation. Sony and Activision released, I believe, Call of Duty Black Ops, like 2 or 3, something like that. I don't give a fuck about COD. But they re-released those games on the PlayStation Store without the DLC, by the way, for I believe like $40 or some shit like that. And then you had to have to pay more to get the DLC from the original release. And people ate that shit up. Like, it was I believe the top of, like, the bestseller charts on the PS Store, like, being out Grand Theft Auto 6 pre-orders and all that shit. And, like, everyone on Twitter was just like, again, you guys don't have a fucking backbone. Like, this is a PS3 360 era game. And you're like, oh, yes, Daddy Sony, please give me more. It's just like, god damn. Like, this is why Sony believes they can just get away with this shit, right? Because you guys are just, like, they'll buy whatever we throw at them. They'll buy fucking 20-year-old, almost, PlayStation 3 games for nearly full price. Just because it's Call of Duty, and I can't live without my Call of Duty, And it's so frustrating that, it's those kind of people that are just like, I'll buy that slop, I'll buy my 2K slop, I'll buy my yearly COD slop, I'll buy my sports ball slop, my gunner slop, all of that kind of shit that, just fuck us over in the long run. Because as long as those kind of people are willing to give Sony a fuck ton of money and, keep their PlayStation Plus subs, all of that shit, we're never gonna have a leg to stand on. Because they can just turn and say, like, hey, most of our, player base doesn't give a fuck. But it's just like, there was, recently an incident where, PlayStation Store was down. And, you can't access your digital library if you can't connect to the PS Store. Because you can't check your license or some shit like that. I don't know. But it's just like this is the company you want to just, like, give full reign to doing whatever they want with your library. If PSN is down for, several weeks, just like, well, I guess I'm not playing the PS5 or the PS6. I'm not playing any of my games because they can't get validated or whatever the fuck, like, Sony does over there. It's super frustrating. And then, Xbox, there's this whole thing, it's like, well, is Xbox gonna, like, counter this with their new console? Like, they have a chance here to, kind of fuck Sony over, like what happened with the Xbox One and the PS4. How Sony kind of came back and won that generation because, they made such a colossal blunder doing exactly what Sony's doing now. But, you can't play used games on the Xbox One. You have to always have, an internet connection, or you can't play your games. The Kinect thing having to be always plugged in, shit like that. But it's like, Sony, have you, forgotten that That's what won people to your side, is by, saying, we don't do that shit over here. But now they're just like backtracking and they're like, actually, yeah, we do that shit over here. But who knows if Microsoft's actually going to be like, oh yeah, we'll be the bastions of physical media. It's just kind of hard for me to see them doing that, just because, Microsoft, all that AI shit, them appointing that AI lady to, the head of Microsoft, well, Xbox, and, just all the countless layoffs that they're doing. I don't know, I kind of find it hard to believe that they were like, oh yeah, you can still use physical games here. I guarantee you they were in the same boat as PlayStation, wanting to get rid of physical discs, and they just did it before they could. So it goes back to like, oh, Nintendo, please save us, Nintendo. And I do love Nintendo quite a bit, but it's just like, again, they're already, like, they have like one foot in the water already with their game key cards. And, like, you can say, oh, well, that's only, third-party games, stuff like that. First-party games are still on the cartridge and stuff like that. But my point is like, Nintendo's already kind of flirting with the idea of, requiring you to download all of your games to play them. So I don't think it's great. I don't think it's looking great at the moment. The sad thing is it just, like, kind of kills my motivation to, keep playing video games. Because, again, it's getting more and more expensive. Again, I think Microsoft, like, kind of announced that their next console, they're expecting it to be $1,000. And just, like, at this point, like, it's just, again, they're pricing people out. Shit is expensive enough as is. And they're making it worse. You can call it tariffs, I call it greed. Anything you want to call it, it's bullshit. And on that note, stuff like Grand Theft Auto 6, again, I feel like this is somewhat timed with PlayStation, or if it's just a coincidence, it's a horrid coincidence that, with Grand Theft Auto 6, when it comes out, for one, it's insanely expensive. $80 for, like, the bare bones, there's nothing in this fucking game version of it. And then the $100 they actually wanted to charge for it, to get, the actual game. Which is already, I hate Grand Theft Auto. I have absolutely no interest in it. Again, I'm perfectly fine holding my ground and not being a shill to these stupid corporations that just want to see big numbers go up, up, up. But, the release of Grand Theft Auto 6 is just, digital only. Digital only. You're getting a stupid code in the box again, with, like, the biggest game of all time, all that shit, and it's a code in the box. And, it's not even running at 60 FPS, apparently, all that kind of shit. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Right? They're trying to just kill physical media. Like, and it's ironic because Sony took over distributing, Blu-rays for Disney and everything, because they kind of shuttered their home media division. But, so Sony Pictures, was like, okay, Disney, we'll distribute your movies now. We'll print the Blu-rays, all that shit. But here they are with PlayStation, and again, I know they're different divisions, but it's just ironic that they're both under the Sony umbrella that they're doing this. But what I was saying with Grand Theft Auto is just the fact that it's a code in the box. So any of the physical copies that are going to be on store shelves in November or whatever, are going to be code in the boxes. And people are, of course, pissed off about this, because again, there just seems to be this antagonistic force going after physical media, just ownership in general. It feels like we're losing this battle. But because of that, people are like, I'm not going to buy a physical copy of Grand Theft Auto 6, because it's not an actual physical copy of my fucking game. And, they're going to be able, Rockstar, they're going to be able to point at that and be like, hey, look. We put out a physical copy of Grand Theft Auto 6, and it didn't sell well, See, people only buy digital games now. And it's just like, you motherfuckers, you corrupt, greedy bastards, you. It's just, God, it is sickening how manipulative they are of data. Because, I think it was Insomniac, something about Insomniac, where Sony was, like, oh, a majority of our players buy digital copies of our games, only a fraction of the player base actually buys physical games anymore. And it was just like, no, that's not true. And it was like a list of like recent, PlayStation releases. And it's a pretty even split. Even in some cases, it actually favoring physical copies sold over digital. I believe it was like Astrobot was one of them, and then it had like God of War on there, stuff like that. But no, there's a lot of people out there that still buy physical media. And it's asinine that you're going to completely shut off that audience just, again, for corporate greed. There's no reason not to do it. It's not like, we're running out of disc to print our games on. It's like, no, games aren't getting too big. 4K can hold plenty of space on them. And if discs are not like games are getting too big, again, maybe that's a sign that you guys just need to like tone it the fuck down. Because you're never going to make your money back. You're going to be charging people obscene amounts of money. And it's just, again, it's gotten ridiculous at this point, I don't plan on supporting Grand Theft Auto 6, obviously. I hate that game. I hate Rockstar. I think they're greedy, what they do to their employees. Fucking working them to death. All that shit. And again, if the PS6 does not have a disk drive, does not support physical games, I will not be getting that either. And I will support indie developers because I think indie developers already make some incredible games. And if that's just the way I have to play, new releases, or if, Nintendo locks the fuck in, and doesn't, like, completely kill cartridges or whatever, like I have Nintendo. And, they're finally starting to catch up spec-wise to everyone. So, maybe it won't be too bad if I have to go Nintendo only. But, who knows at this point? They could also give in to it and kill their physical games. So, it's really depressing. There's a lot of depressing shit going on in the world right now. Of course, video games cannot be spared of that. But, there's still a chance of them backtracking. I don't know if that's realistic at all. But, all we can do is hope. All we can do is, like, keep up the pressure on Sony. Good God, I'm sorry. All we can do is keep the pressure up on Sony. Let them know we're here. We're not going away. We want them to reverse this decision because they've already done that with the PlayStation Vita store, allowing that to stay up as long as it has. I still have my Vita. Actually, it's in my suitcase that's on the floor over there. Yeah, but I still have my Vita. Still buy some PS1 games on there, PSP games, pretty cool. But even that store is getting closed down. So it's just like, they're getting rid of our options. And that's how it is. They want to limit your options so they can charge you however much you want and you don't get a say in the matter. And they're going to bleed you dry just for wanting to enjoy your hobby. And I hate it. I hate Sony. I hate their greed. Microsoft, they're not doing much better. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Again, I know I'm a little bit late on this topic, but it's one that I really did want to talk about. And I'm glad I finally did talk about it. And again, it's going to be going because it's not until, again, like I said, the start of 2028, as of now, that they were going to be ceasing production of, their physical games and everything. So, yeah, I think that's it for my rant on that. I'm about to hit the 20-minute mark, and, I feel like this is where I kind of, like, get in a groove. I think about, like, 20, 25-ish minutes is enough for me to say what I want to say about a topic. So, I don't know what I'm going to talk about next. I kind of got that was the big one I want to talk about for now. But, I have stuff to bitch about, of course, still. I have, Sonic, stuff about the 35th anniversary. I could come up with something for that. Or Final Fantasy. Because there are still 16 defenders somehow. Puke. But, I'm sure I could come up with something to bitch about. It's just, once I have to get settled in to my hopefully new place. I hope that goes well. And once I get stuff figured out there, then, hopefully I'll be back with some videos. But, until then, thank you for watching, my servants. And I still don't have something to end the video with. So, bye.